Diablo Immortal is shaping up to be a hell of a game, pun intended. And one of the things that most fans will easily recognize is the fact that the 6 playable classes are actually returning from previous games. So in today's video, I'll present you a tier list of all classes and how effective and easy they are to use for newer players. So if that's your case, you can learn what all the classes are all about and hopefully be able to choose which class to play. So with that being said, let's rank all the Diablo classes for newer players. In a game where most classes can eradicate even the largest groups of enemies, the fact that the wizard can do all of that with a bit more ease does nothing to address its biggest shortcoming, which is their meager defenses. It's true that wizards can absolutely decimate all but the toughest boss enemies. However, they do that by putting themselves at great risk, particularly because they are very fragile. So that's why this class can be very difficult to play, especially when trying soloing content. So the wizard class in Diablo Immortals is suggested for the most experienced players that are very familiar with the flow of combat, that are aware of the toughest enemies' movesets and how to avoid their most dangerous attacks, and have ease stringing together spells to destroy their adversaries in a heartbeat. For that reason alone, I'll put wizards on the F rank for newer players. The monk in the right hand, it's one of the most powerful classes in the game. They have everything they could ever need to stay safe, while keeping the pressure on the enemy at all times. Furthermore, they have a nice balance between strong single target attacks and AoE burst damage, for dealing with both bosses and group of weaker enemies alike. And without mentioning that they can also provide valuable buffs to their party when adventure alongside other players. But the big negative about the monks is that their survival is highly reliant on the player ability to move and actually evade attacks, which makes it another class which is better if you are a veteran in the game. So for that reason alone, we put the monk on the E tier for newer players. Demonhunters excel at one thing and one thing alone, completely obliterating bosses and elite enemies with their massive burst damage. And though they have some AoE potential, this is far from being their strong point. Other than that, Demonhunters can just be as fragile as monks, so the player needs to learn how to move and avoid in order to survive. As long as you keep your distance, you should be pretty much safe. Furthermore, their playstyle lacks variety and could be boring if you are not completely hooked by it early on. So the Demonhunter gets the G rank for newer players. The Crusader is the first of the easier classes in this game. This is because they have high defenses and large HP pools, which allow a large margin for mistakes, making them ideal choices for newcomers. In particular, the Crusaders wield holy powers and use them to empower themselves, their parties, and to imbue their own attacks with the power to smite their foes. This dominion over the light gives them superior AoE capabilities at the expense of their single target capabilities. They also boost impressive defensive abilities, making them into the tanking class in the game. So if you're looking for a strong defensive melee combat with lots of AoE potential and a few important party buffs, and on the topic of being easy to play, the Crusader is the best bet. For that reason, the Crusader gets the C rank for newer players. The only reason why the Necromancer is on this list, it's not because it's broken or overpowered, but because they can get their minions to fight and tank for them, which in theory makes it one of the easier classes to play with. The Necromancer can raise armies of the dead from the corpses of fallen enemies, giving them constant access to their own renewable pool of bodyguards and fighters. The only caveat here is that in order to get their army up and running, the Necromancers need to find the corpses first. But luckily, aside from the summoning capabilities, they also have access to the bone-based magic and spell to protect themselves and obliterate enemies from a distance. So for most players, the Necromancer is the ultimate soloing machine, often being capable of clearing even the tough content on their own, albeit at a slower pace due to their reduced damage in relationship with other classes. Nevertheless, what they lack in raw destructive potential, they more than make up for with their survivability. For that reason, the Necromancer get the B rank for newer players. The Barbarians have come back to vengeance on Diablo Immortals, boasting much of the same straightforward playstyle, which is a good thing because they're supposed to be easy and fun. And the reason why they earn the highest tier on this list is simply because they're really easy to play and have high defenses, but also do absurd amount of damage, both to single enemies as well as to large groups. And as they level up, Barbarians unlock a variety of skills that will help to round up the kits that will make them suitable for most occasions, whenever you are fighting against a strong single boss enemies or a large group of minions. And since they have such high defenses, they can thrive in any of these contests without really having to make any defensive adjustments to their gear or skill sets. So if you want to start having fun right away, without having to put too much effort and thought into a single class, well, the Barbarian might be the class for you. So for that reason, Barbarian get the A rank tier for newer players. And that's it for Diablo Immortal tier list. So share with us in the comment section below what's your favorite class so far. And if you want to download and play Diablo on your PC with better graphics and performance and being able to use your keyboard and mouse, I'll leave in the description here a video explaining step by step on how to do so. But anyway, that's it for today's video, thank you very much for watching and bye bye.